My name is John, and it is a privilege to be here and to help lead us through this service, which really, hopefully, is a celebration of the life and the legacy of Monique. I want to invite you in these next moments to do your best to be fully present, to lean into the emotions that are going to rise to the surface, to not fight them, but rather to embrace them. Don't hold back, to fully engage your mind and your heart, and to be intentionally vulnerable in these next moments. These next moments are an important step in celebrating who Monique was and the legacy that she leaves behind. It's also an important step in the grieving process for you. Let her memory fill your heart and embrace all the conflicting emotions that come with it, the joy and the agony, the gratitude and the grief, a profound gratitude and an indescribable grief that are mixing together right now in many of your hearts. The gratitude of having known such a person and the grief at having lost them. These deep and often conflicting emotions fill our hearts and overflow out of our eyes. To not be embarrassed of the emotion, to not be embarrassed of the grief, because grief is evidence of love. These deep and profound emotions are currently present in your heart and might spill out of your eyes. One eye leaking gratitude and the other eye leaking grief. To laugh at the stories and the memories, and to cry at the profound loss. I'm now going to invite Ted to read the obituary.
Thank you. It is with great sadness we announce the passing of Monique, a wife, mother, grandmother, and friend. Monique passed away with Richard, Mike, and Christine at her side at the St. Boniface Hospital in Winnipeg on July 29. And although Monique was sleeping most of the time in the hospital, every time she'd wake up, she would see Richard or Christine or Mike at her side, and she'd give a smile. So she knew that they were with her right till the end. Monique was born on May 7, 1953 in St. Pierre-Joly, Manitoba, where she graduated with honors from Institut Collegial Saint-Pierre. She met the love of her life, Richard, in 1970, and 2 years later they were married. Richard and Monique raised two children, Michael and Christine, in Morris, Manitoba, where they lived until 2008. Throughout her working life, Monique worked in a variety of healthcare roles at the Red River Valley Lodge in Morris and at the Morris and Emerson hospitals. She is predeceased by her parents, Paul and Cecile Chouinard, and her sister Pauline Chouinard. She's survived by her loving husband Richard of almost 50 years, her 2 children Michael and Christine, and her beloved grandchildren Alex and Rebecca. She's also survived by her sisters Rochelle Weeb and Izette Riel Gagnon. She will also be missed by her sisters-in-law Connie and Nelson, Norris and Debbie Weeb, and brothers-in-law Roland and Darlene, and Donnie Weeb, along with numerous extended family members and friends. Everyone who knew Monique knew her heart. She always had an ear to listen and knew exactly the right thing to say. She was a rock and matriarch of the family, and she will be missed deeply by many. Richard, Mike, and Christine would like to thank the acute cardiac care unit nurses at St. Boniface Hospital for taking such great care of Monique in her final days. They were fantastic and made a very difficult time a little easier for everyone. For all who provided messages of condolences and support to the family, we gratefully thank you.
I will now read tributes from Monique's sisters on behalf of them. Good morning, everyone. It's still unbelievable to us that we are gathered here today to celebrate Monique's life. Edith and I would like to share a few things with you about our sister. Monique was born on May 7th, 1953 at the St. Pierre Hospital to Paul and Cecil Chouinard. She was baptized Monique Marie Deaf. She did her first communion and her confirmation all at St. Pierre Roman Catholic Church. She was the oldest of 4 girls, and I guess you can say we always looked up to her. Yes, there were times we said, it's not fair, she gets to do this or that, and we can't. But being the oldest always comes with a few privileges. Being the oldest was a big responsibility. She often had to look after us younger kids when Mom was busy in the garden or doing other things. We were lucky to have our grandparents living across the highway from us, so you can almost say we lived on a farm. We were there all the time. As they say, soup is always better at Grandma's. As we got a bit older, we had fun on the farm. That being said, on a farm you need an electric fence to keep the cattle in, so yes, we had our fun, daring one another to touch the fence, making a chain link with our hands, even saying it wasn't on when it was. So yes, we had our fun, daring one another to touch the fence, making a chain link with our hands. We were always ready to go for a load of hay during harvest season. We would pack a lunch, sit in the hay wagon on our way to the field, and sit on top of the bales riding home. Those were the good old days. Playing in the hayloft was also a favorite of ours, but don't tell anyone, we might have destroyed a few bales with our jumping around. On the farm, our grandpa had this big old mare, Pitou, and Monique liked riding him. Grandpa would sit her on him and lead the horse around the pasture. Now, how can a young girl like that be brave enough to sit on a big horse and yet be scared of Pee-wee, our Budgie? Budgie, our Budgie. Well, if by chance the bird would get out of the cage, Monique would head for the stairs. Unfortunately, we didn't have a door going up, just a curtain, so her eyes were always going up and down, making sure he wouldn't sneak in and come down, and she wouldn't come down unless he was back in his cage. But later on in years, Monique enjoyed watching the birds outside. I'm sure we got into some mischief in our younger years, but we will never tell. Growing up in a small town, there wasn't a lot to do, so we had to entertain ourselves. Monique did all her school years in St. Pierre. She was the smart sister. She excelled in grades and graduated with honors. It seems everything came fairly easy for her. She graduated in 1970. Off to the city, she went looking for a job, and yes, I now had my very own bedroom. How exciting was that, finally, after all those years? Somehow Monique met this handsome young man from Morris, Renaud. Richard Renaud was his name. Sorry, we don't remember all the sweet details. He came along and swept our sister off of her feet and married her. Together they had Michael and Christine And then came two beautiful grandchildren, Alex and Rebecca. Grandma's eyes always lit up when she talked about her grandkids. In the later years, at our family get-togethers, we would play games. Sometimes we thought she wasn't always keen to join us, but with a little bit of encouragement and coaxing, she would play along. That also goes for taking family pictures. That was one thing we didn't like, but did anyways. Whenever we had a family outing to go, we always wanted Monique along. She was like the icebreaker. She would lead the way. She loved to talk and visit with the relatives. Monique was a bit like our dad. He loved to talk. Monique loved to read, so whenever we would find a good book, we would share. She played online games with her Facebook friends. She played Words with Friends with Edith, who now has lost her Scrabble partner. For years, Monique found an interest in working on the Ancestry website. She would look for information all over the place online, finding family connections all over and in the Free Press archives. She had so many family trees on the go. She was good at it. We will continue in her footsteps. Who will follow her love of family trees? We are sure there are many other stories to tell, but we will end it at this. You will always be our older sister. You will always be in our hearts. We will always love you, Monique, and you will be missed by all who knew you. I'd like to invite Christine and Mike.
My brother and I have put together a few of our memories of Mom that we thought we'd like to share with all of you today. Let me start off by saying, in my mother's eyes, I was the perfect child, teen, etc. I could do no wrong. And I even remember her telling my in-laws after I got engaged, and I thought, wow, she really did believe that, or she was trying to make sure I would get married. Although I have to say, I know I wasn't perfect. And in fact, there were many opportunities where my mother would gently tell me that maybe next time I should do something a little different. That was my mom, the loving, caring, compassionate woman who accepted everyone for who they were. She was so easygoing, and we could easily convince her to do almost anything. In fact, a childhood friend of mine reminded me this week that when we were little girls, anything we wanted to do, she would let us. Even if she just stood on her feet for the last 8 hours at the nursing home, working, she would respond, "Oh, I suppose," and get out all the baking stuff, let us make a huge mess in the kitchen, supervise us, and then probably clean everything up. Or even after a late night shift, she would pack up the car and take us all to St. Malo Beach for the day in the summer. A classic story about convincing her to do anything was during one of those day trips to St. Malo. We stopped to visit a friend there, and they had a litter of kittens to give away. My brother and I were playing with the kittens, and we decided we wanted to take one home with us. Our dad at the time wasn't really keen on having a cat, but we managed to convince Mom that it was a good idea. Now, when I tell you my dad wasn't keen about it, we thought it was best to hide this from him for a while. Dad would get up, go to work, we would let the cat out. Life would be normal at the house. That is until one day, about 3 a.m, Mike had to wake up Mom, and of course Dad too, because Kitty had a litter of kittens in his closet. So I think that's how Dad found out about Kitty.
When I was 10 years old, I wanted to play hockey because all my friends were playing hockey. Even though I've never played hockey before in my entire life, I finally worked up the courage to ask my mother if I could play hockey. I guess I left out the part about being worried about how expensive hockey equipment would be. And she responded that I never have to worry about money. If it's something important to me, she'll find a way to make it happen. So she searched the classified ads and found equipment that an older boy had outgrown, and the rest of the equipment we purchased from the Morris Home Hardware. But the story doesn't end there. She was the one that drove me to practice at 7 in the morning in the middle of winter and watched the entire practice. At the end of the practice, she would offer words of encouragement and advice on the way home. Mom was always ready to drive us to any after-school activity and sports. She would always offer words of encouragement when needed and any kind of support that we needed. So.
Our mom was also so trusting and maybe a little gullible. Our dad reminded us of a story about when we bought a new window air conditioner for our house. We were all quite excited. Mom was excited to learn how to use it and asked Dad, "How do you turn it on?" Now you need to remember, these were the days of the commercials where they had the clap on, clap off lights. He said to her, "You just need to clap once." So she clapped, and my dad secretly turned it on with the remote. She asked, "How do you turn it off?" And he responded, "You clap twice." So she clapped twice, and my dad secretly turned it off. She then asked, "How do you adjust the temperature?" And my dad couldn't stand it anymore, and he burst out laughing and revealed the remote secret to her.
Another story from my childhood was when I was sitting at the kitchen table eating cereal, and I was reading a library book before school because I had a book report that was due that morning. I remember Mom offering to read aloud from the book while I finished my cereal, and still to this day I remember how generous that was of her to read the books. And then I learned that she also did that for Chrissy as well.
I have to say that hearing my mom laugh and giggle was the best, and it happened often, as many of you know. We are a bunch of jokers, and we are constantly doing stuff that would make my mom shake her head and laugh. There are times where she would be reading email jokes or posts on Facebook, and she would giggle and giggle, and then it would turn into a laugh that would eventually turn into tears. She would sit on the couch and get my dad to come over, and she would read him the joke and continue laughing. She loved to laugh, and my dad was the best at making her laugh, even in her final days.
Okay. I remember living on my own, and I would get a phone call saying Mom and Dad were in Winnipeg, and they had just bought too many groceries from Superstore. Could they come over and drop some groceries off? And of course I would say yes. Mom would then tell me all the deals she found at Superstore, like the jar of peanut butter, and she ended up buying 3 jars of peanut butter. To this day, I cannot walk into any store and not look for deals and things that are on sale.
When I graduated, I decided to go to college in Winnipeg and moved in with my brother. I was really nervous about this next chapter in my life, and I remember chatting to my mom a lot about it. She decided that she would help me and came to the city that weekend before I was supposed to start school. She figured out the bus route for me. She walked me to the bus at Polo Park. She even got on the bus with me to Red River College, and she helped me navigate what seemed like a really big school coming from the small town where kindergarten to grade 12 was all in the same building. When I attended the orientation, Mom went to the bookstore, got all my books, and she got herself oriented with the layout of the college and gave me a bit of a tour when I was finished to help me feel more comfortable. She even knew one of my instructors somehow and introduced me to him.
Mom was a really good cook. I remember all the holiday dinners and the delicious meals she would make at home. I would always take a stack of Tupperware containers home with me, and I would return the next time with the empty containers only to have them filled up again.
I know she was super excited about my wedding, and I remember her speech like it was yesterday. But ultimately, what she was waiting for so patiently was grandkids. I remember how excited she was when Alex was born. She hopped on a plane to Calgary as soon as she could. I remember her even joking about sneaking him home with her in her duffel bag, and she wrapped him up in a blanket and put him on top of her duffel bag and took pictures, of course. And she threatened to take him home every moment she was about to leave. Same story when Rebecca was born. She was there right away to help and snuggle up those grandbabies. Even though she was in pain in some of those years, she would get down on the floor and play trucks and cars and line up dominoes to make domino runs. She would let Alex paint her face when she came to visit at Halloween and would read stories and snuggle them up every chance she got. In more recent years, she would teach him to play skip-bo and spoiled them with peanut butter marshmallow squares anytime we were together. She even had some shipped out to Calgary for the kids to enjoy.
I've done some soul searching, and I've found that a person can be judged successful in their life by how many friends they have and by how many people they've touched. My mom had many people that loved and cared about her.
And all of you are here today. When we asked Dad what he would want to say today, he said, "The only thing I have to say is she was the love of my life, best friend and partner, and I love to make her laugh." We could keep going on and telling more stories of Mom, but that's what today is about. I encourage all of you to remember your stories about Mom, share them, laugh, cry, and celebrate her life with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
As you process your loss of a wife, loss of a mom, loss of a sister, loss of a friend, a grandmother, I want to give you a quote that has been meaningful for me in seasons of loss. The person who mourns deeply has loved greatly. The person who cannot mourn has never truly loved. He goes on to say, in our age and culture, we are so conditioned that we want to have happiness without pain and love without grief. We flee the grief and seek a painless happiness. But if it is true that mourning is not the farewell to love, but love's reverse side, then we can explore the mystery of grief without fear and surrender ourselves to mourning without being afraid of losing ourselves in it. The person who mourns deeply has loved greatly. And so to process your pain as evidence of authentic love, it's because you loved someone so deeply that you miss them so profoundly. I think if Monique were here, she would tell you to grieve well. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. It's okay to have bad days or even bad weeks. To not run from the grief, but rather to surrender to it. It's in the grieving that we find the healing. We're not here today just to celebrate who she was. We're not here today just to celebrate her life, but we're also here to acknowledge her legacy, what she leaves behind in the lives that she touched while she was here. And Monique leaves a legacy of loving kindness. She sincerely cared about other people, and in this oftentimes cynical world, that is a tragically rare quality, to truly listen to other people, to give them the incredible gift of your undivided attention. Monique had a comforting presence, a motherly presence. She also had an infectious giggle. I like how Christine put that in our conversation. It actually made me giggle hearing Christine describe her mother's giggle. An infectious giggle is a part of her legacy. To make someone else smile is a wonderful thing, a simple but wonderful thing. And you can keep Monique's memory alive by carrying on her legacy of kindness. Every time you go out of your way to make someone else's day just a little bit better, you honor Monique. Every time you choose compassion over judgment, every time you choose acceptance over judgment, you honor Monique. Every time you make someone smile and bring just a little touch of joy to someone else's life, you honor her memory and you continue her legacy. Now, Christine will read a poem that she wrote.
So when I was looking for a poem or something to put in our memory card, there wasn't anything that really jumped out to me that I thought was about my mom or something about that my mom would like. So I wrote this poem, and a lot of it is about her last few days with us, and I'm going to do my best. Our rock. A day won't go by without us thinking of you. There will be times when we are strong, and there will be times that we won't know what to do. You showed us what love and strength looked like every day. We will take care of each other, we promise, in each and every way. You would say, it will be okay. It will just take time. You are strong. Mom, we know you are right, but right now, it just feels all wrong. When you smiled at us, we knew you'd be all right. What we would do to see your smile one more time, or even hug you real tight. You were our rock, our matriarch, and everyone's friend. You knew exactly what to say to us, even in the end.
Thank you, Christine. As we near the conclusion of this service, before we lower the urn, I'd like to recite the 23rd Psalm as we reflect on Monique, her life, and her legacy. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me down paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'd like to invite Alex and Rebecca at this time to place the notes in with your grandmother. After we conclude, you're welcome to take a flower and place it in as well, or any keepsake that you might have. For as much as it has pleased Almighty God of his great mercy to take unto himself the soul of our dearly departed, we therefore commit her body to the ground, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We commit commit her body back to the earth and her soul under the care of the Creator. May she rest in peace. This officially concludes the service, but we would like to invite you to linger as long as you like, and again to feel free to take a flower and to place it in with the urn.
Thank you everyone for coming today. On behalf of Thompson Funeral Home, we would like to again thank you for coming forward and supporting one another and honoring Monique at this time. It's very difficult for everyone. Kelsey and I will take a step back at this time, let you have some private time alone at Graveside, and when you're ready to take your leave, we will again come forward so the cemetery staff can help complete the closing of the grave. Thank you.